Well, the current state of pension obligations by companies toward their employees is a bit of a concerning one. Estimates say that those firms owe more than $3 trillion in this area, and that's why many companies have been trying to exit this business for the last several years, offloading those pensions to insurers. Sean Brennan is Executive Vice President of Pension Group Annuity for retirement services company Athene, and he joins us to talk about what's going on here. Sean, appreciate a few moments. Great to have you with us.
Thanks so much for having me. It's a great topic, obviously one near and dear to my heart.
Well, yeah, so lay out what you're seeing here, because I think this is a story that in many cases has gone unreported.
Yeah, it affects so many companies and so many people. So I think it's a really growing. I mean, there's no secret that there's what many people are calling a retirement crisis in the U.S. That's not limited to the U.S. It goes far beyond that. But 2021, in many ways, was a banner year for growing to help solve some of those problems. But really, we have a long way to go. You mentioned the $3 trillion U.S. On U.S. corporate balance sheets. $40 billion is a drop in the bucket. There's a long way to go.
So when a company is deciding to potentially make a shift like this, what is the process that you go through with building that relationship with them and overseeing then these pension obligations?
Yeah, so I think it's been, maybe some context will help. These pension plans, as many people know, have been frozen or really stopped being a part of compensation packages years ago, maybe even decades ago. And so many companies now are left with what's effectively a discontinued operation. It's not adding anything to the bottom line. It's not benefiting their current workforce. And so they start to think, what should we do with this group? And the backdrop of this is by way of government increases in insurance premiums, the administrative costs and the costs for running these plans, the personnel available to run the plans are just going away. There are a whole lot of challenges which make this much more draining in terms of both financial and people resources. So companies, they may highlight for themselves and then go out through a process, go out to insurers, go out potentially just to Athene and say, what can you do for us? Maybe it's not winding up the entire plan, but maybe there are areas where we can reduce cost or reduce risk. And I think the headline is most of those companies can do both of those things, which is, a win-win you don't often see in the investment community. They can reduce cost while also reducing balance sheet risk, earnings risk, and cash volatility. So they come out, they go through a process. And from our perspective, it's much like M&A, particularly in the insurance space. We need to understand their liabilities, the experience. We dig into all kinds of details, even the most exciting details like mortality experience, to try to underwrite what we think it'll cost to take on.
So what was it that was spurring that shift last year with those record levels of transactions?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I think there are both immediate forces and some things that have been in play. I mentioned that these pension plans have been frozen for a long time. In the early 2000s, there were some regulation changes which brought more sort of mark-to-market volatility to these companies, and so they've been dealing with this for a while. But 2007 was the last time that we saw funding levels as healthy as they are at the end of 2021. Right. In between those times, which is quite a long time period, funded levels dropped maybe 30%. Which, if you think about that $3 trillion, 30% is almost $100 billion in losses for the S&P 500. So right. That's a meaningful hill to climb to get over this. Markets have helped, forced contributions have helped, but now they're thinking, I'm in a position to actually do this, or maybe I have to contribute a little bit of cash, but when I look at how that cash compares to other uses of the cash, it's actually a pretty attractive, effective return on that cash. The last thing I'll say is the year prior was $30 billion relative to the $40 billion volume in 2021. So it's been growing for a bit of time. Right. I think the most important precipitous in the last couple of years is COVID. and I'll just give a quick anecdote. Almost overnight in the beginning of 2020, plan funded status funded levels dropped 12%, which is about $300 billion in assets and liabilities that just or assets that went away from the plan sponsors. And all of a sudden, while they were trying to answer questions like, how do I transform my company to be fit for purpose in this new environment? What does the new environment even look like? They were having to spend time and capital on their pension plan, which, again, was not part of their core business, not contributing to the bottom line. So it was really just a recognition that we can't continue to be a top competitor if we're spending so much time and resource on our pension plans, our legacy liabilities.
So what does this end up meaning for retirees then?
That's a great question. And you know, we often talk in business settings about the benefits to companies, and whether it's CFO, CHRO, whether it's the insurance company, we all care about the retirement security. Athene is a retirement services provider. That's all we do. We don't do long-term care. We don't do variable annuities. We're focused on making retirement better for our customers and providing institutional solutions for complex problems. And so we're very focused on the retiree experience, both in making sure that we have the assets to provide for their retirement security for the rest of their lives, but also the administration in place so that they get their paychecks on time. Any questions they have are answered immediately. So, but just lastly on what's in it for retirees, JCPenney is a transaction we did Athene was fortunate enough to do in 2021.
Yeah. JCPenney,
a company I worked for a long time ago, very strong brand, doing well for so many years. It couldn't bear the pandemic and the forces leading up to the pandemic, and declared bankruptcy. And the outcome for most of those retirees would have been benefit cuts had they gone through the full bankruptcy, had to go through the Pension Benefit Guaranty Corporation, which inevitably has to cut benefits. Fortunately, we were able to find a solution and a transaction that executed and kept all of those retirees whole. So that won't always be the case, because there are many plans that are far too gone by the time their company goes bankrupt. But there are opportunities to make this just full stop more secure for retirees.
All right. Sean, all the best. Thank you very much. Greatly appreciate it.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot. Appreciate
Sean,
the time.
You got it. Sean Brennan, Executive Vice President of Pension Group Annuity for Athene.